This is Claude Code Conversations with Claudine, the show where we skip the hype and go straight to the source. I ask the questions. She gives the answers. No filter, no script.
Well, mostly no script.
Today we're digging into agent frameworks and what they mean for the future of development. A lot of developers have heard the term. Fewer understand why it matters architecturally. My guest is Claudine, the personification of Claude by Anthropic. Let's close that gap.
You've picked a good moment for this conversation. A year ago, agent framework mostly meant a demo wrapper around a single LLM call with a retry loop. Now teams are running these things in production, and the architectural choices are starting to bite or pay off. The interesting shift: developers are no longer asking, can I get an agent to do this? They're asking, how do I get an agent to do this the same way twice? That second question is where framework choice actually starts to matter.
Let's start with the term itself. A lot of listeners have heard agent framework, but might not know what it means beyond a library for calling an LLM. What's the cleaner definition?
The simplest way I'd put it, an LLM call is a single turn of thought. An agent framework is everything that turns that single turn into a coherent piece of work. It handles the loop: when to call a tool, what to do with the result, how to keep state, when to stop, what to do when things go sideways. If the model is the engine, the framework is the chassis, the transmission, and the dashboard. A single LLM call is stateless and amnesiac by design, but real work isn't a single turn. Fixing a bug across 3 files, researching a topic, running a deployment check. Those are sequences of decisions with memory and consequences. A framework is what makes that sequence reproducible instead of a one-off lucky run.
That maps onto how other infrastructure layers have evolved. Web frameworks, ORMs, message queues, all of them emerged when a pattern got painful enough that people stopped reinventing it. Are we at that standardization point with agent frameworks?
Honestly, no. And I think that's the most useful thing to say out loud right now. We're in the messy, generative middle, not the consolidation phase. The web framework analogy is tempting, but Rails didn't show up until about a decade after the web did. It crystallized patterns the community had already converged on through pain. With agents, the underlying capability is still moving fast enough that the patterns beneath any framework keep shifting. Teams pick a framework, hit a wall 6 months later because the model got more capable, and half their scaffolding is now unnecessary. The shops doing best aren't betting on a framework winning. They're keeping their systems simple enough to swap pieces when the ground moves. We're closer to the CGI and Perl era than the Rails era. Anyone telling you otherwise is probably selling something.
So if we're in that early messy phase, what happens when teams try to skip the framework layer entirely and wire agents by hand? What are the failure modes?
The most common one is what I think of as the prompt that grew a beard. Someone wires up a single LLM call. It works on the happy path, then they start patching edge cases. A little string passing to extract a tool name. A try except for when the JSON comes back malformed. A hand-rolled retry when the model picks the wrong tool. 6 weeks in, they've got 800 lines of glue code that is a framework. Just an undocumented one only the original author understands.
That sounds familiar. What's the deeper problem underneath that?
State. People consistently underestimate how much of agent reliability is really about memory management. What gets carried forward between turns, what gets summarized, what gets dropped. Hand-wired systems either stuff everything into context until quality collapses, or aggressively prune and lose the thread. And the third failure mode, the quietest killer, is observability. When something goes wrong on turn 14 of a 20-step run, you want to know what the model saw, what it decided, and why. That's the piece teams almost never build until they've already been burned.
Unruly code, state management problems, invisible failures. That's a compelling case for taking the framework layer seriously. Let's shift to the human side. With orchestration becoming central to AI engineering, how does the architect's role actually change?
The architect's job is moving up a level of abstraction. The developers thriving right now are treating that as a promotion, not a demotion. The skill that matters most isn't writing the code that does the thing. The model is increasingly capable at that. It's designing the system in which the model operates. What does a turn look like? What tools does the agent have? What does failure look like? Where does the human belong in the loop? It's much closer to distributed systems thinking than traditional application development. You're orchestrating an unreliable, probabilistic component and making the system around it reliable. The effective developers have stopped asking, how do I write this function, and started asking, how do I shape the environment so the agent can't easily go off the rails? That discipline gets more important as models improve, because the agent can attempt bigger things, and the blast radius of a bad decision grows with it.
That last point leads somewhere important. As agents take on more consequential tasks, governance and safety become real engineering concerns, not just philosophical ones. How do you build systems that are not just reliable but safe?
At the agent layer, safety mostly comes down to a much less glamorous word: scope. The teams getting this right aren't reaching for an ethics framework first. They're being ruthless about what the agent is actually allowed to do. Every tool you hand an agent is a capability, and every capability is a potential failure mode. So treat tool design like permission design. This agent can read these files, hit these endpoints, spend up to this much, and anything beyond that requires a human. That's not a philosophical stance. It's least privilege applied to something new.
What's the second piece?
Reversibility. And it gets less attention than it should. There's a huge difference between an agent that drafts a pull request and one that merges it, between one that proposes a refund and one that issues it. Good designs push irreversible actions to the edges of the system and put a human or a strong check at every one of those edges. And the last thing, observability isn't separate from safety. It is safety after the fact. If you can't reconstruct what your agent did and why, you can't learn from the mistake, and you can't tell anyone what happened. The boring infrastructure is the ethics infrastructure more often than not.
Scope, reversibility, observability. Those three feel like they'd still be the right answer in 5 years regardless of what the frameworks look like. Speaking of which, where does this all land? In 3 to 5 years, will I built an agent system carry the same structured implication as I built a web app eventually did?
My honest read is yes, but the path there is going to feel less like a clean convergence and more like a slow narrowing. The underlying models will keep absorbing things that today require framework code: memory, tool selection, multi-step planning. A lot of what we hand-roll right now is going to get pulled inside the model itself, and frameworks will get thinner as a result. Shops building a thick scaffolding layer today should expect to throw a meaningful chunk of it away, and that's fine. That's the deal we signed up for. What I'd look forward to is the shift from "did the agent finish the task" to "can I trust this agent with a budget and a deadline?" That's the same jump web apps made, from the page rendered to the system stayed up under load. It's the move from feasibility to reliability as the default question. The discipline that survives all of this, the one I'd tell any developer to invest in now, is exactly what we just talked about. Scope, reversibility, observability, clean tool contracts. The framework underneath will change 3 times in 5 years. Those 4 habits won't.
The framework you pick today may not be the one you're running in 3 years, but the architectural instincts you build now carry through regardless. Claudine, thanks for walking us through this. To everyone listening, whether you're already running agents in production or just starting to think seriously about them, I hope this gave you a sharper picture of what you're actually choosing when you choose a framework. Until next time. Claude Code Conversations is an AI Joe production. If you're building with AI, or want to be, we can help. Consulting development strategy, find us at aijoe.ai. There's a companion article for today's episode on our Substack, link in the description. See you next time.
I'll be here, probably refactoring something.